Good day and welcome back to the next installment on our series on filters within Tableau. We are nearing the end of our section on accessible filters, and in this video we'll be covering date filters. It is pretty straightforward and it does combine some of the dimensions and measure topics we've discussed, so I would strongly recommend that you have a look at those sections before tackling this one. Just to take stock of where we are, we've already looked at what filters are, we've looked at global filters, and we had the last bit of accessible filters as I've mentioned. Coming up in the next video would also be cascading filters, so do stay tuned, that is quite an interesting topic as well. But first let's have a look at the data. The data which we are looking at, as mentioned, is from the Kaggle website, and it's a CSV file which is also available obviously from our site, and you'll find the link in the comment section. This is basically one CSV file with about 24,000 lines and a few columns. What you will notice in here as well is it ranges from the time that Kickstarter was brought to life back in April 2009 until January 2018 is the most recent data we have in there. Now let's just run through each of the fields to understand what each of them are used for, as we'll obviously be using this in our filtering as well. So firstly, we have the ID field, which is a unique identifier with the name of the project. We also have a category as well as a main category in which this project is listed on the Kickstarter website. We have a country indicator. We'll notice that a lot of them are already from the US, being a US entity, but there are also a number of other countries in there. We have a date that the project was launched on Kickstarter, so when we are starting to look for backers. We also have a deadline at the time that the project closes, the currency that the amounts are in. So we've got a goal and a pledged amount. So obviously goal is the amount or the target that needs to be reached for this project to be continuing, and the pledged amount as well, which has already at this point in time when this extract was made, is the amount which has been received for this project or pledged as such. Then we also have a state with indicating the state of the project. It's not state as in geographical references, but more on the state, so we can see some of the project failed, some have been successful, others are still live. And next we've got total number of backers thus far, also the goal and the pledged in USD amount, as we do have some in the local currency for these entities. And that's in essence the file which we'll take forward to the next section. Okay, so date filters. We have two dates within our file. We've got the deadline and the launch. Now the launched is date time value. I'm actually just going to change it to date just to make it easier for the purposes of this discussion over here. So maybe let's take a step back and look at dates in general within Tableau. So when we use dates in Tableau, let's just use launched and just put this into columns, for instance. Automatically it puts it as a blue pull at the top there. And that means that Tableau is interpreting this as a discrete measure. Now you might have come across discrete and continuous measures, and in this case let's quickly have a look what those are. So when we look at discrete values, and I'll just open up the drop down there so you can see, we are referring to parts of this date. So either the year or the quarter or the month or the day, or you can even have weekday or week number as well, where this basically breaks down your date into different parts. So it actually would then be easy to classify it, almost like a categorical variable, to classify it into different new categories. So if we wanted to see the number of records for the years, or let's just use it like that, the years, we can see, let's change it around, we can see that 2015 had the most, for instance. Or if we wanted to see it as the number of the days, for instance, which day had the most number of records, it looks like the first is the day which get launched, which makes sense, the start of the month, for instance. So as you can see, it takes whatever days on that record and breaks it into that specific value. And we can do month as well. It combines all of the months, and you can see there's not really one that stands out, maybe July a little bit, but December is the slowest month generally, it seems, from the data. Yeah, so that is our discrete dates. In the same drop down, we also find another set of dates, which are our continuous dates. Now these, as you can see, builds up to an overall date. So again, if I click on here now, this will show it in green. And the reason for that being is that this now becomes a continuous measure, where Tableau doesn't necessarily take the year and break it off from the rest of the date, the month and so forth. It's just showing it at a higher level. So each year is still shown differently, but if I do drill in a bit deeper, you can see that now we are talking about quarter, or we are talking about a month breakdown. So this is in essence much more easier to use on a timeline. As you can see here, there was obviously a bit of a spike over there. So when you think about filtering over here, you would either be filtering on a category, or you would be filtering over a range of dates. So that is the difference between our discrete and continuous measures. Again, if you want to refresh on that, I know we skimmed over this quite quickly, maybe have a look at the Tableau help file. It would give you quite a lot of information on that. But back to our filters. So what does this mean, and why are we doing this? Okay, so why have we even talked about that? So if you now use your launched date once again into filters, it opens up with a different couple of options. Firstly, you can see the green, so that's our continuous measures, where we actually look at a relative date or a range of dates, and our blue ones, you can see there's a blue one at the bottom as well, but the blue and the green, which are our discrete measures. So let's look at the range of dates. Again, it opens up like our measures, as we've seen, where we can give a specific range or a specific starting date, an upper and lower limit, or we can use a relative date relative to a specific day, such as today. So if this model is open tomorrow, it would once again look at that specific day and the next 3 days, for instance. So you can, if you can put the anchor to today's date, for instance, or you can just anchor it relative to today and show the number of values over there. So this is your continuous one. So we saw there were some values in there which didn't look right. We know that was only started in 2009, so a bit of a data quality issue there. But let's say we are focusing on from this specific random date and say, okay, that would include all records during this period. Easy. Okay, and the best way to see that is to use that launched date, as we saw earlier, and put down it as, remember this is now a continuous measure. So if we put down a month, or let's say a weekly view of the number of records, there you go. You can see week by week what the number of records were over a period of time. And that's our continuous measure filter. However, if we wanted to look at a specific, let's go over to the next one, look at a specific perhaps month of the year to draw this visualization, for instance, and look at the number of backers. Let's say we are looking at the number of backers on a specific category, or main category, rather I should say main category, but we only want to see all projects within the first quarter of the year. That was perhaps a request from our stakeholder. We would take the launched, put that in filter, and then look at a specific quarter. Now we've got years, months, quarters, week numbers, weekdays, a combination of month and year and so forth, or individual dates even that we want to look at. But importantly, these are all discrete and all focus on the part that's broken off from the date, as indicated earlier. So if we take quarters and we only want to see quarter one, we hit apply, and that will only take all of the entries that were in quarter one. If we show filter, and if we just make this interactive into a single list, once you click, you can see how that's starting to differ quarter by quarter. So again, doesn't matter what year it is in, it will only look at the quarter which is being displayed. So you might ask then, so we've now looked at all these different filter types. We've looked at dates, we've looked at measures, we've looked at dimensions, context filters, quite a lot of those. So what is the only one that we should be using? And the answer is none. You will always be using a combination of these to whatever makes sense for your visualization. So experiment a little bit, see which ones work well for you, see the options that works for the dashboard that you're creating as well. We've given you quite a number of exciting things to focus on. And yeah, have a look. In the next episode, or in the next delivery of this series, we will be focusing a bit more on the order of operation, combining all of these into a specific view, but then also looking at something called cascading filters. Another little tip that might make your dashboard taken to the next level. Okay, do stay tuned. Do have a look at the next video, which is coming up. And until then,